with the ground. Your glider. Your manual for your glider should tell you its speed range, or it could be printed on the glider itself. This is obviously pretty important. If your glider is very slow, it probably isn't suited to low ridge flying, or only in relatively light conditions. Your glider should be fitted with a speed accelerator bar, or speed bar, and it should be adjusted to the correct length. Use your speed bar sparingly. The air on coastal sites is generally pretty smooth, but I have had days where I wouldn't dream of using the speed bar, particularly if the wind is crossed. If the air is getting rough, using your speed bar could trigger a collapse. If it is that rough, just land and go and buy a cup of coffee. You should also know the stall point of your glider. How slow will it safely fly? It's important to know the position of your hands and toggles at the point at which the glider will stall. This happens very quickly with little warning. The turning ability of your glider is also important. Some gliders have a fantastic glide, but struggle to turn effectively in a narrow lift band. This can mean that you will fly out of the lift and be forced to land. Be aware that some gliders will flat spin if you try to force them to turn sharply without using effective weight shift. If your harness has cross bracing, it pays to loosen this to a level where the glider reacts well to weight shift. The weather. It pays to learn the signs that the wind strength is picking up. It's pretty easy to get caught in the air with no forward speed and no option but to land over the back. On a coastal site, the best indicator for this is whitecaps. They are usually an indicator to start becoming cautious. Whitecaps generally start when the wind strength reaches around 15 knots or 28 kilometers an hour. Another sign on a beach site is sand beginning to fly. If the beach sand is getting blown into the air, then it's probably already too strong to get your canopy out. If you are on an inland ridge, put up a streamer. Watch how much the grass is blowing around and the tops of the trees. Technique. Good ground handling and glider control will make your flying so much safer and more enjoyable. If you practice the following techniques on a level field until you are happy with them, you will save yourselves hours of frustration and possible injury on the ridge or beach. We have found that reverse launching is the safest and most predictable way to get into the air. Added to that, using the correct style of riser control means that you will never have to let go of, and then re-find, the steering toggles. Reverse launching. This is a refined reverse launch technique. Set up as normal, then run your hands down each riser in turn, grasping the brake handles from its retainer. Holding the A's in one hand and the brake lines in the other, you can control the glider as it rises off the ground. This way you can turn around without letting go of the brake handles. Some pilots prefer to use the A's and D lines instead of the brakes. Try both in a safe environment and see which better suits you and your glider. Be ready to be lifted off your feet. If this happens, the main thing to remember is to keep the glider straight into the wind. Do not allow the glider to turn downwind. If it does, your airspeed will be added to the wind speed and you'll have a high speed downwind crash. If you can get your feet into your speed bar, use that, but carefully. Fly forward away from the ridge and then use big ears to land on the beach. Back to launching. Start walking backwards towards the ridge until you feel the glider trying to lift your feet off the ground. At this stage, you should be using your brakes only to keep your glider over your head. Another hint is to continually move your body so that you stay directly under the centre of the canopy instead of trying to drag the glider around with the brakes. As the lift from the glider gets stronger, try to move along the ridge, keeping your canopy relatively parallel to the beach. You can use quite a bit of brake, as the canopy will usually try to push you forwards away from the ridge. As the glider lifts you off the ground, let the brakes up so you have safe airspeed. Be careful of stalling the glider as you launch. Turn the glider closer to the ridge. This will keep your glider in the lift band. If you fly away from the ridge now, you will fall out of the lift band and be forced to land.